Now, for the daily dose of stupid.
That was stupid.
I know it was stupid.
Really stupid.
Hey, I just said it was stupid.
Today's daily dose of stupid comes brought to you by David Hogg. That's right, David Hogg, you may remember he was one of the kids in the Parkland shooting. He was sort of the ringleader when it came to March for Our Lives. And so vehemently anti-gun, despises the NRA. And he was one of the big proponents of gun control in the wake of the Parkland shooting. So David Hogg went on a tweet storm the other day. And, I'm kind of upset because David Hogg was always a really easy target, and he kind of disappeared from the media for a long time. But here's David Hogg tweeting the other day, thoughts and prayers to the NRA's PR team. And what he is mentioning here is Maria Butina, I believe is the way to pronounce her name. And just to give you a little bit of background on her and what David Hogg is talking about there is Butina was a Russian spy. I guess, I don't know, I don't know how that works. I don't know if you're technically still a spy if you've got caught. I assume your profession doesn't change per se, but it's like, well, you're not really spying anymore if you've got caught. So Maria Butina was a Russian spy that infiltrated the NRA and a number of other organizations. It tried to undermine them to try to get Russia's political ideology, I guess, out there more to make Americans a little bit more pro-Russia. So here's the thing about this tweet, though. First of all, it's very snide and sarcastic. He's saying thoughts and prayers because typically what happens is when there is a shooting, Christians and other people will say, our thoughts and prayers go out to the family. So he's mocking that, first of all. But I would like to point this out before we even get into the politics of this. Does anybody here actually believe that he is praying for the NRA? Or, for that matter, does anyone here actually believe that David Hogg prays, period? Because I highly doubt it. He is a foul-mouthed punk that calls regular people, you and me, I'm an NRA member too, regular American citizens saying they don't care about children getting killed. That if you're not for sweeping gun legislation, then you're a child murderer. This is his stance, and yet somehow now he's evoking spirituality, he's evoking prayer. Don't give me that. Don't give me that. This is not somebody that I would be surprised if he prays at all, much less that he's praying for the NRA. Now, I have prayed for David Hogg, and that's not to pat myself on my back. I'm just doing the bare minimum. The Bible does tell you that you're supposed to pray for your enemies. And so that's something that I've actually done. So the idea that he's actually thinking about and praying for the NRA is just beyond stupid. You can tell based on his actions and what he said in the past that there's no truth to that. And what's sad about this is he and so many other people that are pro-gun legislation are mocking people of faith. I can't tell you the number of media personalities that have come out and said, well, we don't want any more thoughts and prayers. No more thoughts and prayers. And it was Chris Matthews was one of them. There were a number on CNN. Don Lemon was one of the big ones that was mocking this. They know that they're playing to an audience that largely is secular and doesn't believe that that does any good anyway. But David Hogg is coming out and openly mocking people of faith for a political advantage because he believes that it makes his side look better politically. Ergo, he's perfectly fine with mocking people that actually pray and think that it means something when he says things like this. Just a reprehensible human being. And here's another thing about this spy that infiltrated the NRA. Yes, she infiltrated the NRA and a number of other a number of other organizations. Being infiltrated does not mean that goodness knows we don't want to get infiltrated, and if we detect something that we should, but being infiltrated makes you the victim of a crime. And so the idea that, the NRA is the one that ought to be held accountable because a spy got into their network, well, that makes them the victim of spying. It doesn't mean that they were working with the spy, and this is unfortunately the stupid conclusion that Hogg and many people on the left have, is that anything connected to Russia, because they believe somehow now Republicans and conservatives are in the bed with Russia. And this is partly fueled by the idea that there are some Republicans that have a more favorable view of Russia now, according to some polling, which is also equally stupid. I don't care if it is people that are conservatives that are saying this. Russia is a threat to everybody. And anybody that doesn't see that is willfully blind, whether you're on the left or on the right. But for some reason, they believe that somehow this means that the NRA was working with the Russians. And so David Hogg says this, stupid as it may be. Care to comment on the NRA conspiring against the American people with Russia? Dana Loesch, of course, being the national spokesman for the NRA. I, for one, can't wait to see the ELOs raid your HQ. So he's alleging somehow that a spy getting into your system, that means that you were working with that. That makes no sense. If you are an organization or a country like Russia that is working with and conspiring with an organization, you don't have a spy there. You don't. Because there would be no reason to put a spy there. If you are, let's say if we're reverse and it was America, would America send a spy into an organization to infiltrate it if we believe that organization was friendly to us and would listen to us? No. That's why you put spies in places, because the place that they are infiltrating is hostile to you. And so if anything, Russia sending a spy to infiltrate the NRA and other organizations is pretty good evidence that the people that they believe they were infiltrating were their enemies. You don't send a spy to your friend's house. You send them to your enemy's house. And so David Hogg's stupid assertion that somehow the NRA having a spy infiltrate their ranks is proof that they were working with Russia. If anything, it's evidence to the contrary. But again, logic and reason have never exactly been David Hogg's strong suit. Because if they're sending a spy in there, wouldn't they mean that they consider the NRA a threat? Because if I were Russia, I certainly would. If I were Russia, I would want to bring down the NRA, because they're the ones defending the gun rights of Americans. And if I'm Russia, I certainly don't want to invade in America where there are people with guns. I would much rather just the military have guns. Do you have any idea how long it would take to take over this country with as much private gun ownership as we have? It'd take them a week to take Montgomery. At least, even with better equipment and better trained soldiers. Regular citizens with firearms would significantly slow down the infiltration of this country. Even if you have inferior firepower, even if you have inferior training, people with guns are a lot harder to conquer than people without guns. It's a fact. That's why dictators take away weapons rights. It's one of the first things they do, because they know that it is very difficult to subjugate people that have weapons. And so, if I were Vladimir Putin, of course I would send a spy into the NRA. I want the NRA to be broken down to where Americans don't have private gun ownership anymore. That would be my intended goal. And so, if anything, you could say that the goals of the Democrat Party and the gun grabbers are aligned with Russia. Not saying they're conspiring together, because I would actually need evidence of that. Unlike David Hogg, I don't just jump to conclusions. But I'm saying that if you're looking at the stated goal of the Democrat Party and the stated goal of the gun grabbers and David Hogg and the stated goal of the Russians, which is to expand their influence and basically what Vladimir Putin said, to bring back the USSR, well, then the goals of the left and the goals of the Russians are actually aligned, at least on that issue. And so maybe you ought to think through these things before you just start pointing fingers. And what we really need to do is take a step back and look at this issue as a whole, because it happens on both sides. Happens on both sides. Because Russians have tried to break down this country. They don't care what party you are. They hate all Americans. And when I say they, I mean the Russian government, not the Russian people themselves. I'm talking specifically about the Kremlin and the people that are in power in Russia. They want to bring America down and replace us as the world superpower. That is their goal. And do you think that they're really going to come here and say, you know what, the Russians or the Republicans said some nice things to us and Trump said some nice things to us, so we're just not going to conquer that part of the country? It's not how that works. They don't like any Americans, and they will do everything in their power to bring us down as a country. That's why they're funding on both sides political discord. That's why they tried to hack our election. Every indication that we've been given is they're not playing one side or the other. They're not pro-Democrat and they're not pro-Republican. They are anti-America. And that's why the NRA is a threat to them, because the NRA is pro-America. Secretary Clinton back in 2009 and 10 was targeted by a Russian spy. By the way, this same spy that we're talking about right now, the one that David Hogg is mentioning that infiltrated the NRA, that did really happen. You know what else was going on with that same spy? She met with Federal Reserve Vice Chairman Stanley Fischer and Treasury Undersecretary Nathan Sheets in 2015. Wait a second. 2015. That would have meant the president who oversaw that would be Barack Obama, which means, again, more evidence that the Russians are trying to bring down America as a whole, not one party or the other. It does not benefit them for the Republicans to be in power or the Democrats to be in power. They wanted influence into the Clinton campaign, they wanted influence into the Obama administration, and they also want influence in the Trump administration. They want to bring down America from within, and they don't care what administration gets brought down in the process as long as the country as a whole is weakened. That is their final goal. Russia is the enemy of America, and they don't care which party you're in. And this is the real problem. We are so busy right now fighting each other, we're ignoring the common enemy. We're so busy with this political struggle. Every time something happens with the Russians, be it Democrat, Republican, we all jump at each other and start fighting with each other. That's exactly what Russia wants. You're looking at what's playing out in Ukraine and all across Europe. A lot of that, not all of it, but a lot of that is Vladimir Putin's doing. And part of it is because they are sowing the seeds of discord, trying to increase their own power, because a weaker Europe and a weaker America means that Russia is in a better position to either take over or at least have a stronger influence at the very least. And so what is really tragic is that we are so busy fighting amongst ourselves and being at each other's throats that we are ignoring the common enemy, which is Russia. And that's an enemy that we're going to have to stand united against. And if we do not, then we are not going to succeed against them. This is normally the part of the video where I tell you to go ahead and like and subscribe, but the truth is, I really don't care whether you do or not. I mean, it's not like you really need all the latest news and commentary from me. It's not like there's a lot of really important stuff going on in the world and in the state of Alabama right now that you should probably be aware of. So, you know what? Like and subscribe, or don't. I don't really care. Reverse psychology. Boom.